All right, today on Musicians Edition, we're going to look at number 71 from Essential Elements, which requires us to use a couple of new instruments today, maracas and claves. So let's start with claves, right? Claves are going to give us two different sticks here, right? And you'll notice when we start playing these sticks are really, really high pitched, and that's what kind of gives it the characteristic clave sound, right? Some claves have a kind of a lower pitch and a more woody sound, right? And that's kind of for different styles of music. But for this one, we're going to use the high pitch variety, and probably what you'll see at your school in your band room is more like what I have here. Okay. Now, it's really important when you play these that you don't hold them like snare drum sticks and hit them together, right? That kind of gives us a kind of a gross sound and not really what we want from out of our claves, right? But you'll see the instructions in your book to cup your left hand to form a resonating chamber, and then you'll hold the lower pitched clave in your left hand or your weak hand, your non-dominant hand, and you'll use the clave in your other hand to strike the center of the clave that you're holding, right? So we want to think or figure out which one's lower pitched. You can do that just by listening to that one and this one, right? And you can hear this one is quite a bit higher pitched, right? So I'm going to take the lower pitched one, put it in my non-dominant hand, which for me is my left hand, right? And as your book says, you're going to form a resonating chamber with your non-dominant hand. So what you can, a way to think about this is if you've ever kind of like used your the speaker on a iPhone or on a cell phone and held it like up into a cup or something to kind of amplify that sound. This is kind of a similar effect that we're going for here, where we're going to essentially make kind of like that cup out of our hand, or kind of like an amplifier out of our hand, and then put the clave there. That way, when the clave vibrates and produces sound, that sound was going to resonate in our hand and then project out into the air in a much different way than it would be if we didn't have our hand there to allow the sound to resonate. Okay? So we're going to cup our hand, kind of like we're trying to hold water, right? Then we're going to sit the clave, singular clave, the lower pitched one, in kind of the gap in your hand, right? And you want to kind of scoot your fingers off to the side, right? We don't want to hold it like this, because then we'll hit our fingers, right? And you want to try to like touch it as lightly as possible, because if we have a lot of our hand touching it, then it's going to keep the clave from vibrating as much as it needs to, okay? So just like that, get our fingers out of the way, right? And that's how that looks. Just lightly holding on. I'm going to take the higher pitched clave in my strong hand, my right hand. I'm just going to lightly tap right in the center. And that's how we get our clave sound. Okay? So now if we look at the piece, we have beat 1, beat 3, beat 1, beat 3, just quarter notes throughout and some quarter rests throughout. We also have some accented notes, right? So the ones that are accented, we're going to play those just a little bit louder than all the notes that are not accented, okay? So let's try number 71 on the claves, and we're in 3/4 here. 1, ready, go. To repeat. All right, so that's claves, lots of fun. Let's set those aside and move on to maracas. So when you're playing maracas and you have to get a specific rhythm, the way that I like to do this is to think about holding maracas kind of like you would a snare drum stick, right? So just like this in our hands, and I have my fulcrum just like I would have if I was playing snare drum, right? And then just use a quick, sharp motion to try to get all of the beads that are inside here to just pop up in the air and then fall back down. Right? If I move too much, then you'll hear the beads hit the top of the maraca, and then I'll get two sounds. Right? Which is not a bad sound, and sometimes we do want to do that. But in a piece like this where we have to play specific rhythms, we just want to get one sound so that we can control how many are happening, right? In a different piece where you just wanted to have maybe constant eighth notes or something like that, then letting the maraca shake is totally fine. But here, we want to work on just getting one sound per movement. Right, so that's something you can practice, just controlling how many sounds you get out of the maracas. Okay, so now let's look at the piece. We've got some eighth notes, we've got some quarter notes. We have some quarter notes with accents, so we're going to try to play those a little bit louder without getting the beads to hit all the way at the top of the maraca, right? So that takes a lot of control, a little bit of practice. To get those to sound louder, but not to sound twice, okay? So here we go. And a 1, and 2, and 3, and... Repeat. All right, so there's maracas, there's claves, number 71. Lots of fun. Takes a little practice to kind of get used to these. It's like taking on a completely different instrument, but that's one of the really exciting things about being a percussionist is that you get to just constantly be learning different instruments and figuring out how to make interesting sounds with those. So enjoy that, have fun with that, and I'll see you next time.